That's better. Thank you. Yes, we did. Thank goodness we could connect over Thanksgiving. Or Fran, we had Thanksgiving. You're still having Thanksgiving.
She's going to have Thanksgiving. She's still preparing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it just yet.
Oh, it's been done and gone. Like leftovers are almost at that stage where they should get checked.
For sure.
Depending on when you had your Thanksgiving. But yes, connecting over Thanksgiving, we had birthday party yesterday. That was a lot of connecting. So
twins birthdays.
Yes. Yep. And they had a great day.
Good.
It's really fun to watch your kids just have that level of fun where they just like, they're just giggle because they just can't not, because it's just, there's just joy seeping out of them, which
good day.
Really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All righty. We're good to go, I think.
So
awesome.
I want to start out actually right off the bat on this whole connection piece with the question that he talks about in here, and it's, are you connected with yourself? Because we often think it's all about connections, all about other people. Connections all about external. But the reality is, unless we're actually connected and aware of ourselves, there's a gap. And so that was probably the thing that that I really thought about during this past sort of Thanksgiving week, was reflecting on my connection with myself. And am I connected with myself? And then the question, what's my greatest asset? So, yes.
I think that this is a very, very important question for us to explore, especially in the climate that we're in right now. Because a lot of us have only been with ourselves, or mostly have just been with ourselves for the last, you know, it's funny, we always say 18 months. I think we've been saying 18 months since July. It's progressing. It's longer than that, but it's just easier to say 18 months because none of us are willing to say 22 or whatever it has been. I'm not even counting, but you know what I mean. The time frame that has passed in the most recent past, we have not necessarily been connecting with the outside world the same way. And so now when we return to connection, just like we start to dip our toes into connection with other people again, I'm noticing it personally, and it's not because I'm for shaming all the people that I'm around, but you notice if you are looking, you are noticing the deficiency in this that people have experienced with connection, and probably the fact that we are vastly overlooking the importance of the connection and the assessment to the connection with the internal. Everybody has these massive needs, and then they're all coming together in the same place. You're like, whoa, this does not feel the way that it normally would feel. You know, you go through a stressful time in your life and you think, oh, we're going to get together with these people. It's going to be so great, rejuvenating, fantastic. I love getting together here. And then everyone comes empty and needing. What do you do? Right? Because it's not the same.
And I think that's key. And it just made me think about that, Janelle. But it made me think about what's our expectation for that connection.
And how can we meet that?
Yeah.
Having the growth.
Is our expectation what it was 2 years ago? Like, are we just flipping ourselves back to that? Or were we recognizing that we're different? The world's different? The people that we're connecting with are different? And are we realigning our expectation for the connection?
Such good questions to ask. And I think that this is yet another sort of uncharted territory where and we've talked about it before, when March 2020 came around and John Maxwell stepped in and stepped up and was like, here is unprecedented times, and we could all like never hear those words again. Could we please? Yeah, could we not? This is the time that it is. We are going to step forward and lead so that we can help people go forward and whatever. I feel like we are here again. I feel like we're at another level of this, because now we are embarking into connection with people. And as people, and this would include everybody here, like as people who want to serve people well, as people who focus on connections and growth and all of those things, how can we be intentional and pivot, right? Because we may find that what we had doesn't exist in the same capacity. And we need to be okay with that, or allow ourselves time to mourn and then move on, and yeah, have opportunities to connect in the spaces that will welcome our growth and mindset and all of those things. I'm not saying that you can't continue connections, but there will be connections that we had previously that aren't necessarily going to work. And that's sad. But anyway.
That's growth of people always, all along, no matter what environment we're in. So if we go back to kind of where we started on, are we connected with ourselves? I'd love if people would be open to, thinking about and responding to the question of, what are your expectations of yourself and your own needs in the current environment in light of connection? What is it that you want it to look like or feel like for you?
I wanted to have a big party tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I want a big party tonight. Exactly. And for those of you that don't know, Linda's got a really special event today, like a big deal event. Can you share with us a little more, Linda?
Our 45th anniversary today. So
congratulations.
Yeah, so I would love to have had a party. Yeah, we could have some people, but a lot, wouldn't come. And we're having a quiet working cattle.
Yeah, a working party. But the reality is, and I think it's really, really important, Linda, that you can say this, that you can be aware of it, that you can acknowledge it. I want a big party. I want all my neighbors to be able to come, all my family and friends to be able to come. That's what would fill my cup for connection.
Oh, I think Sherry's frozen. Yeah.
I just chose to froze.
Well, you did very well. Chose to froze. Congratulations, Linda. That's awesome. I wish you could have a big party too. Like, and I'm thinking like, sorry, my brain goes way back, and like old tiny church basement, gigantic cake, lots of squares and a program and the people, like that's where my brain goes, where like that's how I would love to see you celebrated that way. That would do great for my heart for connection.
Yeah, for our fourth, we had just finished the barn, back of the barn. It was cold. Oh, we froze there, but we had a band. Yeah, we had a grass band. Yeah, we had all the family friends, and yeah, it was wonderful.
That's awesome.
Who else?
I don't think I can top that one, but I would like to have a party as well. I like to party. But again, it's only a certain crowd that would actually come out in a situation. Because we've been thinking about having a housewarming party. And I know a lot of my family would not attend.
So when we want these things and when we become aware that that's what we need to fill our cup, and when we don't see a way for that connection to happen, what do? Like, what happens then?
Have a glass of wine or two.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like that. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, so yesterday it was kind of a different day. And I mean, having 4 kids, we've had multiple opportunities to have disappointment with birthday parties and things that they have wanted to do and that kind of thing. And so I've just sort of gone, you know what? I need to stop planning things that have anything to do with anything outside of what I can control and keep things within my own control. And so we didn't do a friend's party because there's just so many complications right now with isolations and exposures and it and people's comfort levels and whatever. And I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just tired of asking for permission. So we're just gonna do what we're gonna do. So yesterday, I don't know if you guys followed my stories, but the girls have been wanting to do something, and it's just one of those frivolous whatever things, but we went and rode on stuffed animals at the mall. And my one daughter still, I think, swears that stuffed animals have souls. And so the fact that she was riding on, and her big dream since she was like 4 has been to ride a giraffe. Well, there was no giraffe, but she rode like an actual giraffe. I'm like, I don't think people do that. But so I let them loose for 20 minutes in the mall and they could just ride and do whatever they wanted to do. We did nails, we did shopping, we had fries, we just did stuff. We went to Starbucks, we did all of these things. Now, speaking about pivoting, so this is just a story for the times, people. Our family has chosen to have their vaccinations, and so we have one. We do not have both. And last week, Nolan and I, or this last week, all like the last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we ate out every day at a restaurant. We're not refused service, showed our cards, no problem. So we get our girl, everybody's all dressed up, gonna go out for dinner last night. We go to a restaurant and they refuse us because we don't have the full deal. And so my husband pushed it, whatever, tried, no dice, anyway. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is what they wanted to do, right? We had to pivot. Chinese food at my parents' house worked out great. 2 cakes, 2 girls, what have you. But then really did work with the connecting piece with each girl to find out where their hearts were at, what the disappointment stemmed from, how we could rectify it in a way that was within our own control, and allowing the feelings to come out. Like, how do you feel about this? Why? What piece of this makes you upset? Let's talk about it. Vent, let it out. And now this is what we're going to do going forward. Because we do need to acknowledge the hurt and the feelings, right, that are there, and we need to process them instead of stuffing. And that's important for our kids too. And then you eat ice cream, because that's like the wine of 13-year-olds.
Or maybe older people too.
There's ice cream too. I'm not saying you can have a float. Can you do that with wine? I don't know. No, just kidding. We had ice cream cake and regular cake. Mama wasn't saying no to anything last night. They could have asked for a pony and I probably would have figured that one in too.
So that really is the, I don't know, the word of the day, the word of the moment is that whole concept of pivot, is the whole idea of whether it's a way we want to connect with ourselves, a way we want to connect with somebody else. Not necessarily working out the way we planned. And maybe we need to think about, how does pivoting make you feel in your own connection with yourself?
I have a word. Tired.
Yeah.
Anybody else feel that? Yeah. Because sometimes you just want to go do things that are on autopilot and you're just tired of thinking about everything. Like, could I just not think for a minute?
I like Diana's word. Guilty. Yes. Stressed. Stressed.
Disappointed. I think Linda said that one too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Disappointed. Hey, Fran.
Irritated is my word.
Yeah. That's a good
It's
one.
pivoting is it's definitely uncomfortable, and that's what I've been dealing with internally, but getting over that, it's it's worth it. Like you said, it's so much easier to just do everything on autopilot. You're like, oh, it's just, but it definitely causes stress. So, and I'm sorry, I'm at my daughter's soccer game, so
I love it.
Yeah, they're playing.
That's great. I love it. I'm seeing you like holding your phone and taking the pictures with the camera.
Oh, I
like
know.
You are super mom. That's amazing. That's amazing.
So if for us, the pivoting creates all those words that we have mentioned, plus there's probably a few more.
4-letter ones? Anybody?
Do you think that makes it easier or more difficult for us to connect both with ourselves and other people?
Jimmy Lou just put trauma in the,
yeah,
that's a great word.
I absolutely agree.
If I can just say something, I actually, I really hate that word. Reason why I hate it is because they kept using it all this last year in school. We're just going to pivot, and we're just going to pivot, and we're just going to pivot, and we're just going to pivot, right? And so the kids have been here, there, now here, no, do this, have this, go, no, now to play sports, you got to have this to do this. It's the word has been overused in the wrong way. So I really don't like it right now. I'm sure that John Maxwell has a better way to use it and look at it, but it sends me through the roof right now. So I have to connect that word in a better way. But right now it's not the word I want to use, because every letter that came out from the school our school board was like, and we are just going to pivot. So like it was always in somehow, you know, the whole scheme of it. So yes. So John Maxwell, please help me to see that word in a different light, in a better light.
And I'm really glad you mentioned that, Jimmy Lou, because really the word is a traumatic word, a very traumatic word, in that all the meanings it has are connected to things are not going to be able to continue as we had planned. And I don't care what kind of fancy word or fancy anything or whatever you put onto it. That's the bottom line. And I don't know that it's a John Maxwell word.
No, no, just it would be nice to figure out, to see it in a better way. But right now in the world that we live in, it's, yeah, but trying to see the positive.
I'm with you in that, Jimmy. And I think too, especially those of us who are really focused on purposeful living and personal growth and being positive in situations, whatever, we're just like, I don't really care where we land, but could we land so we can make a plan and start moving forward with our lives? Like, we just want, just pick something and then we'll just go, like, and we'll do, and we'll be positive, and we'll be whatever. But if we could just stop pivoting, like if we could just stop, you want me to go this direction? Okay, yeah, right. And I mean, I'll use it. Yeah, no, I won't even use that because we're not going to go there. But I think that is one of those things where you just figure, okay, now I finally got, okay, so this is the way it is. These are the rules. These are the plans. Like, this is the thought. Okay, all right, I will make my choices in accordance to that direction, right? But then the direction changes.
I think, I don't know why this came to my mind, Janelle, but that whole concept is all roads lead to Rome. And we've heard the comment. How many of us have traveled in the summertime and had construction, had delays, had alternate routes, had to pivot? And so whatever the word is that creates that trauma for us, and there's probably different words, and maybe that's the key when we come back to the law of connection, is that we may be using a word that is creating traumatic stress in someone else, and we have no idea that it's doing that. And as a result, our connection just fell off the edge of the world.
I just want to know if we're still going to Rome. Are we still going to Rome? I'm not sure.
All roads lead to Rome. Are we going by boat or plane? Different
They may have changed where Rome exists at this point in time. They may have just picked it up and moved it.
Right.
No, I like how you said that. And the other thing too is and again, let's go back to self-awareness. The words that we use that can cause the trauma or can elicit emotional responses from people, we are only responsible for a certain amount of that, right? As long as we are working to become aware of our own actions and all of those things. Like, I think about, so I'll use another example with truth and reconciliation. I don't know what I don't know, right? I have chosen to make some friends, and actually, I won't even say I chose these people as my friends, but I didn't know that I would be utilizing them or I would be connecting with them on this platform and to use them as a resource so that I could ask all of my questions. The poor people who now have been pegged my people on this topic, right? but some things I don't know, right? So for example, I had asked, so if I want to teach my kids about the indigenous culture that is here, but I don't want to be offensive to other people. For example, if I want to buy my daughter mucklucks, is that offensive to anyone if my very Norwegian daughter is running around in mucklucks? And my friend said, who is Métis, and she's like, I am part Norwegian and part Cree, so there's the divide. And I'm married to a white Frenchman who is a police officer. She said, I ride the line daily. She's like, there's so many things. But she said, for me, she said, there will be people that will be offended regardless of what you do. Done. She said, but for me, if you've purchased them from an indigenous owned company, business, whatever, that to me is honoring the tradition and teaching your child. Okay, so what do? I walk into Quarks in the mall and I want to look at their Manitoba mucklucks, because I said Manitoba mucklucks, they're mostly, she's like, yep, that's mostly good. If you purchase from that company that's indigenous owned, that is going to support what you're trying to do. I'm like, great, cool, I can do that. I have a pair, I love them, whatever. I walk into the store in the mall that used to carry Manitoba, and I didn't know that they weren't going to. And they were like, oh yeah, we're actually making our own store brand. And I was like, oh, that's really bad timing. that's really, really bad timing. You're no longer carrying the indigenous owned business products, but you're making your own mass market. Like, and so I actually informed them. I said, I'm really sorry. I was planning on purchasing quite a few pairs and slippers from your store, but I won't be. And this is why. So anyway, that was, sometimes we don't know. And it's just because we're on our path to discovery. But some of the connection that we try to do that may insult people is going to really reflect on their self-awareness and their level of health. And we can't control that.
So I do think that brings us to like page 103, when we start looking at the different ways of connecting. We've talked a lot about the first one, which is connect with yourself. But the second one that he mentions is communicate with openness and sincerity. And I think that's a big part of connection, is simply trying to be really, really authentic, really open, really sincere, and asking the questions.
Yeah, asking questions.
So he goes on to talk about the third one is know your audience, which if you don't know your audience, then you're probably not speaking to them. Fourth one is live your message.
Which I would like to interject there, because I have really been, Sherry, the values exercise that we did, I would love if we could do that as a team. I would love it, because so many things have come back to that values exercise. Because if you are misaligned with your values, or you're unaware of your values, how can you live your message? Or how can you find a niche? We hear this so often in the business that we're in, find your niche. Well, if you don't know what your values are, how the heck are you supposed to know what your niche is, right? And I mean, my value system is not plants, but my niche could be plants. But it's the core, right? I've shared this before. Joy is a big thing for me. Do plants bring me joy? Yes. Why? Okay, I can show how plants bring me joy, right? So it has to be in alignment. And actually, I was doing a plexus training this week, and it was all about values, but it wasn't just simply or sorry, not like values and vision, right? And you really can't be clear on your vision if you're muddy on your values.
I absolutely agree. And that's living your message when your values are in alignment with your life and your message, it decreases stress.
Anyone want some decreased stress? Can we just pour you a cup of that? Like,
yeah, like it really makes a difference.
Oops, if I can just say something. So for the people who weren't at the training in Manitou, Eva got on and, well, there was kind of, I think, Sherry, you talked a bit about values, and then Carrie talked about her why, and then Eva brought it kind of like all back together, all back around, and it was so good. And so today at our training, I'm going to be using that video of Eva chatting about values, because I think it really struck with me. I'm like, I think her line was, if anybody has your book, or maybe it was what you said, Sherry, was the fact that when we are out of line, right, it does cause us stress, and then we don't know where we're at with things. And so when we know, when we have those core things, but you said it's something, just I don't know how you said it, but it was good. So yeah, that's a huge part right now. And I think it's really huge right now. What is your family's core belief? What's your core belief? And then in the climate we're in, what is on a whole your family? What, you know, your husband and yourself, what are you guys deciding? This is our core values. This is where the buck stops. We don't go any further. This is it right now. And it's so important as a family unit that you make that you talk about. This is the bottom line. This is where we go. We don't go any further. We don't go this way. This is it, right? I think it's really important right now. And once we have that, your whole family unit, my kids, my husband, we all act in accordingly to what the world is, what's going on. It doesn't matter, because we know this is our set beliefs and values right now. I don't know. That's my
opinion. I agree with that completely. And I think people have had to reassess. So some people may have not sat down to actually do that work, Jimmy, like to actually walk through that. But I think that there are a lot of people who have asked, like, what do we value, right? I mean, you can see that in the number of people who have A, divorced over the last 20 months, B, sold and bought a different house, or C, renovated and changed the way that they're living, because they realized that, because all of a sudden everything got concentrated, right? You can kind of ignore it when it's fluid, but when it gets concentrated, you can't ignore, like, everyone's living on top of each other, and you're like, okay, if we can never travel again, we need to focus on our backyard, because I can't look at that mess. Like, I can't do that. I need to have something different. We value family time. We value, nights together around the campfire, because that is going to bring connection, and that is going to bring growth, and that's going to bring relationship and all of these things. And so we need a fire. We don't have a fire. Do you know what I mean? Like, I totally agree. People have really had to reassess. And then there are some people who still need to reassess, and they're realizing that there's a deficiency, but they're not spending the time to walk through it. So this space here, like, I have to thank you guys for being part of this, because this is so valuable, I think, for all of us to, what's the word? Walk out our brains. Like, I don't have the right word. There's a bigger word, but today I'm working with very small words, apparently.
So as it goes through these different, guidelines, these different areas in terms of the law of connection, he talks about going to where people are. Mm-hmm. And I think you've mentioned that, Janelle, in terms of asking people what's a fit for them, for their culture. I think it's what we do when we try to learn from somebody else if they have any need for what we have to offer. I think that's that whole concept of going to where someone else is, hearing them, the words they're speaking, maybe the words that have trauma for them, like becoming aware of what those words are, becoming more attuned. And so the suggestion is that we're focusing then on, after we're aware of ourselves, we're focusing on becoming aware and adapting to the other person. And we may not know their language, but perhaps we know how to be open and authentic for them to share what matters to them. And I think a good example, Janelle, was what you mentioned about your daughters and the supper that wasn't what you had hoped. But if you're willing to share, I'd be interested to hear, was each girl affected the same way? And was it the same things that specifically mattered? Or were the things different? And you don't have to share specifics if you don't want to. But
No,
I
that's
think
okay.
it would help us all get a bit of a bigger perspective in that we assume that it's all the same.
And I mean, having twins is like one of the greatest social experiments ever, like watching that unfold, because they are so, especially mine, are so polar opposite. They're just so different. Most of the emotion came from my one daughter, who is very quiet, and she doesn't like to rock the boat. She does not like to make a fuss because she knows that that's, and not that the other one likes to make a fuss, but it happens more often. And so she's the observer to the fuss and doesn't want to add to the issues, right? And so there needed to be more intention to pull that out with her. So the other one, it was more, I want to get dressed up. I want to do my hair. I want to go out. I want to see the people. So she's essentially me. So she's me. Oh, the lessons we learn. She's me. And she wanted to see the people, and she wanted to be part of she wanted to connect in a public space. But for her, because what we did was we went to Grandpa and Grandma's, we were still with the same group of people. We still got dressed up. We ate the food. She couldn't have cared less. I mean, she ate the stuff. She got her cake. She did the things. For her, it was most important that her brother was there. And he was wanting to go to a youth group thing. And so we fought tooth and nail. And it was very interesting to hear, because Nolan had thanked Lucas, so the older one, Nolan had thanked Lucas for choosing to come along with things. We actually didn't give him a choice about going to youth group. We basically said, we'll leave you at home or we'll bring you along because we're not facilitating you going anywhere else. And so Nolan thanked Lucas for coming. And Lauren, who is the child that I'm talking about, she said, yeah, Lucas, that really made the night. Thank you for coming. And so that for her was important. The family, her brother, giving of his time and being engaged, because he was engaged with them. They sat at the table and laughed their heads off, the three of them together. Like it was really good. And that's what she needed. Like she needed a good belly laugh till you cry kind of experience. So she got that, right? The other one who struggled with it, I actually took her with me to get cake because I'm like, okay, I'm noticing, because I hadn't, guys, bad mom moment. I hadn't baked a cake or bought a cake because I was like, we're going out and they will likely give them dessert. And if there is still a void for cake, I'm not opposed to doing this later, like tomorrow or something. But now since we weren't going out, the fortune cookies are really hard to stick candles in. And so I went and got cake, and she had said, I want ice cream cake. Okay, of course the sister didn't want ice cream cake. So I had to go to two different places. But it's two different birthdays. I've always looked at it that way. They're two different kids, two different birthdays. You wouldn't make your other kid have the same kind of cake as your, and they've shared before, it's fine. But I brought her with me specifically, and I'll use the dirty P word again. In case we had to pivot, I wanted to be able to gauge her reaction because I wasn't sure the Dairy Queen was actually going to let us in because I'd heard that they were checking at the door. So I said to him, like, so Elle, like, I know you're upset and that's okay, but like, what mostly makes you upset? Like, what, it sucks that we couldn't go to Earl's for supper. Like, you guys looked so nice, whatever. And I mean, look, her sister wore a dress and heels. She wore the toque and the brown jacket and the jeans and the runners because it's her deal. Like, it's her birthday. It's how she wants to be. She's like, this is me. I'm like, I'm glad, girl. That's good. Like, I'm glad that's you. She goes, Mom, she said, it's not so much where we were going, but going out to a restaurant was like we were going back to normal. And I just was really looking forward to doing something that was almost normal. I was like, okay. I said, you know what, babe? We will take a rain check. And when we are able to, we're going to celebrate the snot out of going out. Like, we will go and we will do the same. Because I mean, like, let's be honest, I don't take my kids to Earl's every day. Like, I'm not, have some chicken strips from Dairy Queen from Skip the Dishes. There you go. That's going out. I just don't. And so for her, it was just the act of doing something normal. So again, we injected more laughter. I let her make some decisions on what else was happening. We picked up some fun plates and then just made the promise that we would rectify it later and that she could drown her sorrows in a whole lot of chicken balls because that's good too, and ice cream cake. It is a weird social experiment though, you guys, like watching the two of them. It's anyway.
But I think it's a really great example. And you may have had a pretty good idea of what you were expecting them to say, and it may have either totally aligned or maybe not quite aligned. But I think we often expect or have expectations of other people based on our own thoughts and feelings. And we're sometimes really far off base.
I think the other thing that it made me really think about was how many normal things now can I just start to inject into our lives? Like today, I might take them to the pool because they can go, like with the way that things are, they can go to the pool. We might go do that because that's normal, right? And just the awareness of her need, because she doesn't talk about it. She's not a big communicator. Doing some more normal things purposefully is going to be big. And just so you know, she got over everything. I don't know if you guys can see that.
That's cute. And that's another piece though. Like we say, kids get over it, but I think that awareness.
Kids are resilient. I don't want to hear it again. That's one of my toxic words.
Yeah, but I think we need to realize that often they stuff it. Mm-hmm. And they only appear to get over it because they feel that keeps things calmer in their world. And so whether it's a kid or whether it's your spouse or whether it's a good friend, sometimes what we're doing is protecting both ourselves, but the people around us from the waves. Because we really can only handle so many more waves. And I think that's part of our law of connection as well, is that awareness of our own level of the waves. You know, are we going under? But also the level of the waves for the people around us.
And going back to the self-assessment again, is it is so, we talk about in this business how important it is for us to do personal growth, to do those things, right? I'm sure a lot of you are like, if I hear Janelle say that again, like, seriously, I'm just gonna mute her. Like, come on. But never has it been so obvious, our need for awareness of where we are at, of what we need. It's like, oh, what's her name? I can see her. Oh, Sherry, help. Brooke Hemingway had Tiffany Peterson. Yeah, okay. Tiffany Peterson says, what do you need, sweetheart? And that is one of the, like, we need to be aware of what we need so that we can be more aware of what other people need, and we can be there to help meet the needs of those who need us, right? I'm not talking about the broad stroke, all the people, because you start here first. And in the center, as much as we don't want to say we're self-centered, but we are the center. If this is not okay, this is not going to go well, right? And I think too, as moms, as women, this gets negated a lot because this is just louder, right? There's nobody, like, I'm not out, like, there are bums that need to be wiped, right, Sharon? There's bums that need to be wiped. There's people that need, like, there's things that could be on fire, and kids climbing. I'll never forget that Sharon said once she'd gone to the bathroom for 2 minutes and her little one, at that time, I think Ginny was less than 2, had scaled the refrigerator and was trying and had opened the adult cap lock bottle of Advil and was trying to feed them to the dog or something. Like it was just insanity, right? You have this picture of, like, and in my head, I added like the pot of boiling water on the stove, and that, like, just you know, those things scream for us to do them. But really, when we hear the scream of this, it's usually too late. This needs to be prioritized so we can serve this, and then we can serve this. Offer direction and hope.
So he talks about 8 keys, and that's the 8th one, offer direction and hope. He talks about 8 keys to connection. And then he says, which one do you do best? That's part of that awareness. What do you do well? We all know that there's going to be an area that we're weaker in and that we'd like to improve. But what do you do well? What is it that is your sort of area of strength? So I'm just going to reread the 8 of them. And if you want to put it in the chat, or if you want to share a little bit about it, I think that would be really helpful for us all. So the first one is connect with yourself. The second one is communicate with openness and sincerity. The third one is know your audience. The fourth one, live your message. The fifth one, go to where they are. Sixth one, focus on them, not yourself. Seventh one, believe in them. And the 8th one, offer direction and hope. So in terms of connection, where do you feel, which area do you feel is your greatest area of strength? And then maybe why? Don't all try to speak at once.
For myself, I would say to communicate with openness and sincerity, because a few years back, I didn't know how to communicate at all. And we're talking nada, nothing. And I had to learn how to do that, and not just in the past 2 years. This has been an ongoing thing in our marriage and in our life for so many years. And I feel like I might be getting close to being able to do that, but I'm still like, I'm not there yet. It's just, and I mean, along the way, we've tried to teach our children how to do that. And I would say we're maybe successful with one of them. The other one is quite closed, and you all know her. But yeah, so for us and for myself, I think I'm getting good at that one.
Awesome. And you know, sometimes it's the ones that we struggle the most with, where we see our growth and hopefully appreciate that. That's awesome, Diana.
Well, and I would affirm that, like, that when you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that resonates with, like, I would say that that is in alignment with my perception of you, that this is work that you're doing and that you do well in it. Yes, Jimmy, the list is in the book.
Yeah, page
In the
102,
workbook on
102,
102
103
to 104.
in the workbook. Now, unless you're asking about in the text, I'll find.
No, I think she has the workbook. Yeah.
It's in the text as well on page 118.
For me, I think my strength is in number 8, the offering direction and hope. Yeah, that's where I resonated the whole. I shook hands with everyone in line, went behind the serving counter to greet the cooks and the helpers, worked my way through the mess hall, hitting every table, wishing everyone Merry Christmas. Those are things that in a group of people, do we get to do that? Those are things that I, interestingly enough, have always noticed when people do, and have seen the importance and the reflection back on how that affects people, and have, what's the word, subconsciously, that has really laid in my mind that these are important things to do, and they make people feel valued and important.
I think number 7 for me, I feel like one of the things that I very much try to do is I a lot of the time can see something in somebody before they see it in themselves. At least I think I try to, and I will go to great lengths to try to help them to see that. I have some girls on this call that I love dearly, and I see things in them that they maybe haven't seen in themselves yet. Yeah. And so to me, that's, yeah, number 7. I think that's a big thing, which sometimes is hard for me to turn off too. I don't know if you guys get what I mean by that, but sometimes I try so hard. I've tried so hard with different people. I worked in the mental health field before. I was an EA and believed in people, saw things, encouraged them, worked and worked and worked. And then sometimes they were just gone. And I didn't know how to deal with that, right? So another level, I guess, of leadership that I need to learn, right? How to turn that off when
I
maybe
think, Jimmy,
disappointment. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's really, really critical and often really important for us to understand that our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. And vice versa sometimes. But that amazing strength is the vulnerability that allows it to be the greatest strength, but that also puts it in a position of being the most challenging vulnerability.
I'd agree with that totally.
Sharon?
Just to build upon that, I can really relate to what Jimmy said with that, right? But it's I guess would be the greatest strength, greatest weakness type thing. It's very, very hard when you can see that in people and you can kind of read where they're at, and when you're able to do that, almost like a sixth sense, right? It's very, very hard to accept where they are at and accept that this is where they're coming from, and this ain't gonna change anytime soon, right? That's very difficult, right, to do. And it's a big strength, right, to be able to see that in people and to understand. I don't know, maybe, I don't know if Jimmy or anyone else, Nikki can probably relate to this because she's an Enneagram 2 as well, right? But it's weird. You can walk into a room and you kind of know who's had a good day, who's had a bad day at a dinner party, who just had a fight with their spouse. You can tell. No one's said anything. Who's struggling with something, who's feeling self-conscious, who's whatever. You can go and you can read that, right? But accepting where someone is at is a totally different thing, right? And that's the flip side. The flip side of that. Yeah, that's all. Just building on it. That's all.
Yeah, that's really good, Sharon, because it reflects back to the law of intuition and that fact that you've got that intuitive knowledge in your area of strength. And it means you have more data coming in. It means you have more data to process. It means you have more data to deal with, and more data is exhausting.
I was just going to say, I hadn't really considered, and maybe that's just probably because of my Enneagram number, but I hadn't really considered, are the yellows okay? Everybody who feels like the empaths, those Enneagram 2s, the people that can feel all the emotion, when y'all walk into a grocery store and everybody is emotion-y, you're like, I can't, must shop online for own mental health. Honestly, and it's, one of those funny memes, check on your Enneagram 2 friends. They are not okay. It's a thing. People who feel things, other people's emotion so intensely, are going to need more connection, more community, more support, more love, more space.
And I think this leads us beautifully into next week's law, which is the law of the inner circle. And
how do we do that every week?
As we do that incredible connection, the people in the inner circle, that's where your core strength and support is coming from. The check on your Enneagram 2 friends. You need your inner circle. So I think we're right at our 10 o'clock, but I just want to leave everybody with that whole concept of connection, connection, connection. It's all about connection. And as we move into inner circle, we're going to find more strength for our connection.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. This has been such a valuable time. Love you all. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.